Tonight, the horrific New Year's attack in New Orleans. Authorities describing the attacker as a lone wolf inspired by ISIS. Breaking news, a small plane crashing into a building. And tracking the first major winter storm of the new year. First, the chilling terror attack in New Orleans. The FBI says new surveillance video shows the suspect planting explosive devices before speeding through the French Quarter in a rented pickup truck. 14 people killed in the early hours of the new year. The suspect, an Army vet, authorities now confident he acted alone and was inspired by ISIS. In a video posted online, the suspect saying he had joined the terrorist group. Tonight, one victim in a wheelchair at the time of the attack, reliving the moment he was hit. And we are now hearing from the families of those killed as the spirit of New Orleans returns and Bourbon Street reopens. Whit Johnson in New Orleans. Tight security in place for the Sugar Bowl. The game postponed a day following the attack. Players and fans paying tribute to the victims. The mayor wiping away a tear during a moment of silence. Trevor Ault at the Superdome. Images coming in late today, a small plane crashing through the roof of a building. First responders now on the scene. The investigation into the Cybertruck explosion outside the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. Surveillance video showing the vehicle sitting for 15 to 20 seconds before the blast. What we are now learning about the driver, believed to be a Green Beret, and what authorities say was found inside the burned out truck. Mola Lenghi in Las Vegas. And tracking the first major winter storm of the new year. The system stretching for 1,500 miles from Kansas to the Northeast this weekend. Brutal cold across half the country, and it's going to stay that way for a while.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and thank you for being with us on a busy Thursday night. I'm Mary Bruce in for David, and we begin with the urgent search for answers after the horrific and deadly terror attack in New Orleans. The FBI now believes the suspect, Shamsuddin Jabbar, acted alone and that he was, quote, 100% inspired by ISIS. Surveillance video showing that rented white pickup truck on Canal Street, then turning onto Bourbon Street, evading a parked police car, then speeding down 3 blocks, people scrambling to get out of the way. The truck slamming into a construction crane, the driver killed in a gun battle with police. On the back of his truck, an ISIS flag wrapped in a gray jacket. And tonight we are seeing the faces of some of the 14 people who were killed and hearing from their families about their loss. Before the college football Sugar Bowl game postponed until today, players and fans observing a moment of silence for the victims. And tonight, the FBI also says they have surveillance video showing the suspect planting explosive devices elsewhere in the French Quarter. Fortunately, they did not go off. ABC's Whit Johnson leads us off on Bourbon Street tonight.
Tonight, as investigators dissect hundreds of hours of surveillance footage and field more than 400 tips from the public. The FBI says 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar was likely a lone wolf terrorist, shutting down earlier fears of possible co-conspirators.
We do not assess at this point that anyone else involved in this attack except for Shamsuddin Jabbar.
The FBI says Jabbar drove that rented F-150 truck from Houston to New Orleans on December 31st, posting multiple videos to Facebook along the way, claiming he joined ISIS before last summer and pledged allegiance to the group.
What I can tell you right now is that he was 100% inspired by ISIS.
They say in the hours before the attack, he placed a cooler with an explosive inside on the corner of Bourbon and Orleans Streets and another 2 blocks away, and had a remote detonator to set them off.
We did obtain surveillance footage showing Jabbar placing the devices where they were found.
While speeding down Bourbon Street, hitting pedestrians, the suspect also opened fire with an AR-style rifle before crashing into this construction vehicle. Next to the truck, a mangled motorized wheelchair. Jeremy Sensky was thrown from it. Tonight, the 51-year-old, who was paralyzed from a previous accident, is recovering in the hospital.
I had to break my femur.
Both legs?
Both legs. My tibia, I think my right ankle's broke.
Jeremy says he never saw the truck coming, only heard loud bangs and screams before he was knocked to the ground.
How do you have optimism in this moment for the future in the new year?
I'm alive, man. I'm alive. Everything's good. I just feel bad for the people that didn't make it.
Sensky survived, but at least 14 people were killed. 37-year-old Reggie Hunter was a loving father of 2 young boys. His cousin Sherelle Jackson was texting with him just before the attack.
It was 12:07 when his message came in.
That was the last
The last message that I had from him at 12:07 a.m. just on New Year's morning saying Happy New Year's and that he loved us.
And when you look at that message now,
I'm grateful that I have it.
But hours later, she says, it was her heart-wrenching task of identifying his body at the hospital on New Year's Day.
I said a prayer before I got ready to go in, like, God, give me strength to be able to do this because I'm wanting to be strong.
did you feel like in that moment, though, you were able to, in some ways, say goodbye?
Yeah. When I picked his hand up and I felt it, it was cold, and I just kissed his hand and said a prayer and said that I love you. And yeah, for me, that was my goodbye to him.
Also killed, 21-year-old Hubert Guthrow, seen here in his high school yearbook photo.
21 years old, still so much life to live and just taken too soon. And it's a tragedy.
Drew Dauphin was 26. His family says he always now will be in the sun at the lake that he loves so much. 28-year-old former Princeton football player Tiger Beck was visiting Louisiana for a long weekend of fishing with some college friends. Kathy and Louis Tenedorio remembering their 25-year-old son, Matthew.
His beautiful face, his laugh, I love you, Mom. He was just a wonderful son.
I'm still in shock, honestly, and as time goes by, I'll see something that reminds me of him and I'll break down. I know that's going to happen probably for the rest of my life.
Officials admit the suspect defeated security by driving onto the sidewalk. Today, new metal barricades were brought to that same spot as Bourbon Street was reopened to the public.
And Whit Johnson with us now from New Orleans. Whit, Bourbon Street, they're right behind you. It's back open, but the investigation into the attack is far from over. So what's the latest?
Well, Mary, the FBI has just released a poster with new images of the suspect, and they include a photo of Jabbar in the early morning hours of New Year's Day, captured on Bourbon Street, along with an image of one of those IEDs that they say that he left in a cooler nearby. They are asking for the public to come forward with any information that could help. And of course, as you noted, all of this as Bourbon Street is now back open, of course, under heavy security, with authorities continuing to investigate this deadly attack. Mary?
The spirit of New Orleans tonight, undefeated. Whit, thank you. And now the investigation into the suspect and his possible motive. The FBI says in the hours before the attack, Samshadeen Jabbar posted several videos on Facebook describing his turn to ISIS and who he first intended to hurt, but why he chose to target New Orleans instead. Here's ABC's Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas.
Tonight, an ongoing and urgent investigation to understand the motive behind this brutal and vicious act of terror.
I've assembled the entire defense and intelligence apparatus of the country.
More than 1,000 federal, state, and local law enforcement officials going full tilt the last 24 hours. Thus far, not finding any other co-conspirators, but still trying to determine if Shamsuddin Jabbar was radicalized to become an ISIS sympathizer online on his own, or whether he was recruited and handled by an ISIS member directly.
This is completely outside of his character.
His stunned brother speaking to ABC News, asking not to show his face.
This type of extremism and radicalization, I didn't know anything about any of this.
The profile being developed, baffling. The mild-mannered real estate agent seen here in a YouTube video.
Good evening. I'm Shamsuddin Jabbar,
turned cold-blooded killer. Tonight, the FBI exploring 3 phones and 2 laptop computers and pleading for the public's help.
Whether you know Jabbar personally, worked with him, served in the military, or saw him in New Orleans or Texas, we need to talk to you.
Born and raised in Texas, Jabbar spent more than a decade in the military in HR and IT roles, including a stint in Afghanistan. But in recent years had been divorced at least 3 times and was facing financial challenges and the strain of child support for his 3 children. But something snapped. Just hours before the attack, the FBI says Jabbar posted videos to Facebook where he openly discussed killing members of his own family. but apparently deciding that was not a big enough political statement.
He originally planned to harm his family and friends, but was concerned the news headlines would not focus on the, quote, war between the believers and the disbelievers.
Agents swarming this home in Houston where the suspect had reportedly lived. Our Maria Villarreal is there.
This is where law enforcement made entrance into the property. You can see what's left of this mangled gate inside, the very bare minimum of furniture and cooking essentials.
Neighbors calling Jabbar a quiet man who kept to himself.
Mary, vehicles used as weapons are becoming the preferred method of mass casualty attack. And we're learning tonight about a report warning New Orleans officials were warned that Bourbon Street was a prime target. Mary?
So many questions remain. Pierre Thomas tracking it all. Thank you. As New Orleans races to reopen its iconic streets after the deadly terror attack, Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry promising an unprecedented law enforcement presence for today's rescheduled Sugar Bowl game. Tens of thousands of fans are there amid very tight security. ABC's Trevor Ault on the scene at the Superdome.
Tonight, a massive security presence at the Superdome for the postponed Sugar Bowl playoff matchup between Notre Dame and Georgia. Bomb-sniffing dogs, sweeping vehicles, police in tactical gear at the gates.
So you can see some of the heightened security outside the Superdome, multiple police vehicles and these barricades. They've even gone as far as to bring in state police in a SWAT vehicle with long guns.
Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry promising an unprecedented law enforcement presence to protect the tens of thousands of fans who came to New Orleans and extended their stays to support their teams.
We walked around yesterday in the French Quarter and there were police and FBI all over the place.
Inside the stadium, the mixed emotions palpable. Fans bowing their heads. New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell leading the stadium in a moment of silence. The teams taking the field, Notre Dame players carrying the American flag. Notre Dame defeating Georgia, but the game today about much more than football.
This city is special. These people are special. A lot of resolve. Life has to go on.
And Mary, city officials and Louisiana's governor were adamant that New Orleans is safe and prepared to continue to host major events, including the Super Bowl, which will be held here next month. Mary.
Trevor, thank you. Now to that disturbing incident in Las Vegas just hours after the New Orleans attack. Authorities now say they believe the driver died by suicide just before his rented Tesla truck exploded outside the Trump International Hotel. Officials now believe the driver was Matthew Livelsberger, an active-duty Green Beret. And what investigators found inside the burnt-out truck. ABC's Mola Lenghi on the scene in Las Vegas.
Tonight, authorities say they believe the driver behind the wheel of that deadly Cybertruck blast outside Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas was a highly decorated active-duty Green Beret. Master Sergeant Matthew Livelsberger serving 19 years with the military, deploying multiple times to Afghanistan and awarded the Bronze Star Medal with Valor for heroism under fire. He was on approved leave from Germany at the time of his death. Tonight, police say they believe Livelsberger died by suicide.
The individual had sustained a gunshot wound to the head prior to the detonation of the vehicle. One of the handguns was found at his feet inside of the vehicle.
Authorities say the 2024 Cybertruck was spotted at the hotel at 7:35 a.m. Wednesday, driving through the valet entrance and then pulling off. An hour later, video shows the Cybertruck pulling onto Las Vegas Boulevard. Later, exploding into a fiery ball, flames tearing through the vehicle before firefighters put out the blaze. At least 7 people injured. Inside that burned-out truck, police uncovering 2 semi-automatic weapons, canisters of gasoline, camp fuel, and large firework mortars. Police say Livelsberger's military ID, passport, and credit cards were also found. Sources say Livelsberger's wife told authorities he'd been out of the house in Colorado Springs since Christmas following a dispute over infidelity. Investigators say he rented that Cybertruck in Denver on Saturday using the Turo app, the same app police say military veteran Shamsuddin Jabbar used to rent the truck in the New Orleans attack. While both men served at Fort Bragg and in Afghanistan, police say there does not appear to be a direct connection between the two.
No information that we're aware of right now that connects this individual to any terrorist organization around the world.
Well, tonight, investigators are working to get into Livelsberger's phone and computers, which could potentially be a treasure trove of information, ultimately helping them figure out a motive. Mary.
But again, so far, no connection to that attack in New Orleans. Mola, thank you. Now to the breaking news from California. A small plane crashing into a building near the airport in Fullerton. The images just coming in showing the smoke and first responders on the scene. One person was killed, at least 15 were injured. The investigation is now underway. ABC's Jaclyn Lee in California with the details just coming in.
Tonight, new video capturing the moment a small plane crashed into a furniture warehouse, triggering a massive fireball near the airport in Southern California.
Immediate landing required.
Dozens of responders racing to the scene just after 2 p.m. Tonight, that death toll now rising to at least 2, more than a dozen also injured. The single-engine aircraft smashing into this commercial building in Fullerton. Smoke seen from the nearby airport. Injuries ranging from minor to severe, police say. You can see the crater in the top of the roof, smoke billowing out. A line of firefighters using chainsaws to get inside. Evacuations now underway. On the ground, firefighters tending to multiple victims and gaining access to the building.
Mary, Fullerton Fire is leading the investigation, with residents told to avoid the area. Mary.
Okay, Jaclyn, thank you. Now to Capitol Hill, where a new Congress is set to be sworn in tomorrow, with the race for House Speaker a cliffhanger. Speaker Mike Johnson sounding confident that despite Republicans' razor-thin margin in the House, he does have the support he needs to keep the gavel. But even though President-elect Trump has endorsed him, just one Republican House member says he's a firm no, and at least 16 others are undecided. Johnson meeting with some of them today. And when we come back, the first major winter storm of the year, stretching 1,500 miles, and the famous family of singers, former teen idols, tonight remembering one of their brothers. And tonight, we're tracking the first major winter storm of the new year. The system stretching for 1,500 miles from Kansas to the northeast. Brutal cold settling in across half the country, with some temperatures plunging below zero. So let's get right to meteorologist Jeff Smith from our New York station WABC. Hey, Jeff.
Mary, in the meantime, over a foot of snow has accumulated over western New York from the lake effect snow. Lake effect snow warnings continue from Cleveland all the way up to Syracuse. And we have new snow alerts over the mid-Atlantic. We're talking West Virginia over to South Jersey, maybe several inches of snow as we head into the day tomorrow. But this will all pale in comparison to the monster storm that'll be developing over the central part of the country over the weekend. Here's that 1,500-mile swath of snow and ice from Kansas all the way to the nation's capital. This will go Sunday into the day on Monday. Significant icing in that swath, and also upwards of over half a foot of snow a possibility. So really hazardous travel conditions developing by Sunday, and behind it, prolonged Arctic cold. We're talking Midwest, Northeast, all the way down to the deep South, deep into next week. Mary?
All right, here we go. The first major storm of the year. Jeff, thank you. And when we come back here, the Delta flight forced to return just after takeoff, the flames coming from the engine, and remembering one of the brothers from a famous family of singers. To the Index tonight, the FBI releasing new images of the attempted pipe bombing the night before the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Video showing a new angle of the individual planting a pipe bomb outside the Democratic National Committee headquarters on January 5th, 2021. And clearer images of the suspect's distinctive sneakers. No suspect has yet been identified. A Delta Airlines flight from Atlanta to Brazil was forced to turn back because of flames coming from the engine. Video showing fire bursting from the left engine shortly after takeoff. The plane returning safely to Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. Delta and the FAA are investigating the mechanical problem. And we have a passing to note. We learned today singer Wayne Osmond has died following a stroke. An original member of the Osmond brothers and the older brother of Donnie and Marie Osmond. The Osmond brothers performing together for decades. Donnie Osmond saying his brother brought light, laughter, and love to everyone who knew him. Wayne Osmond was 73. And when we come back, the new images emerging from New Orleans. Bourbon Street reopening now to the public. Before we go, the spirit of New Orleans in the French Quarter. Bourbon Street is open again, so let's get back to Whit Johnson. Whit.
Mary, New Orleans is no stranger to tragedy, and already tonight we're seeing signs of the resilience here. A brass band bringing jazz music back to Bourbon Street. Just hours ago, the scene of such horror. A memorial laid for the victims, yellow roses, and of course, Mardi Gras beads. This city not letting terror crush the powerful symbols of New Orleans, music, togetherness, and compassion. Mary?
New Orleans strong. Whit, thank you. Thank you for watching. I'm Mary Bruce. I hope to see you right back here tomorrow night for David and all of us here. Good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.